there are a lot of things that are going on in this world right now, and it looks like it's not good. It looks like the dreams are gone. It looks like everything has vanished. But I'm here to tell you that that's not true.
Amen.
So, first thing I want to do is discuss a little bit of business here. I want to thank Tamara Hunter Ransom, who's not feeling well this morning and she couldn't be with us, but this is our new logo. And this is our this is our new name here. It's Restoration House of Hope International Ministries. We didn't have that one word there. And when you obey God, you got to obey Him. So legally, we got that as what they call DBA, doing business as. But I told Tamara, I said, we got to redo a logo. I said, I just don't, it just doesn't, the oldest does not fit. And so we both like lions. Tamara and I laugh about it because we both love lions. And look what she did. So the blue circle is the world, okay? And look at that lion. I love it. And RH of him is something that Marjorie
Just
came
so
up with.
happens to be him, right?
RH of him, Restoration House of Hope International Ministries. RH of him. Get the play on words here. So our website is going to change in the coming weeks. And yes, sir. Hi, how are you? You got a daddy preach, okay? All right. So, so the bottom line is, come on, go lay down. And the bottom line is that this whole thing is a representative of a new thing that God's doing in our ministry. Not just a fancy logo, not just change websites, add this, text that, whatever. I'm talking about the spiritual implications because when He roars like a lion, He ain't just roaring for Millville or He ain't just roaring for the United States, He's roaring for the world. And I believe that what we're in right now is we have to bring hope to the hopeless.
Amen.
And right now there's mass confusion, there's all kinds of things that are going on. But I believe our ministry is supposed to be bringing hope. So here's the thing. If wherever you're from, if you could let us know online and put some comment in there to say, you know, what city or state or even country you're from, we'd love to know. We'd love to hear from you. Because you're going to find out in the coming weeks the ministries we support are not only local here but international. And there's a lot of like arm hooking, if you would, to go from here to here to here. Because right now, because of COVID, there are certain things we cannot do just yet, but there are other people that can. And so as we form those partnerships, you're going to see how this ministry is not dead by a long shot. It's just getting started.
Amen.
So, if I go to the next slide, honey. This sermon series is called From Prisoner to Prince. It's not an original name. Other people have used it. I found it online, okay? But I love the name, all right? And From Prisoner to Prince is basically this story of Joseph. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the book of Genesis. And, you know, Joseph was one of the brothers of 12 that were Israel's sons, or Jacob. And the story of Joseph is fascinating because a lot of times people think of the play, you know, with Joseph with the Technicolor coat and the colors and everything else, because it mentions that there's a very unique coat that he wore that his dad made for him. And it's a nice story, but it doesn't really do it justice because the real deep truths of it are all in the Word of God. That it's so deep, every time I go through it, I'm amazed. So here's what I want to suggest before we go any further. Have you ever visited a, you need to lay down now. Down. My dog. Down, Cole. Good boy. That's my buddy doing today. All right, so here it is. Have you ever visited a nursing home and talked to elderly people who have nothing but regrets? Or have you ever talked to someone who is much older in years and you look at their eyes and they see, Tom's like, really? But you look into their eyes and you can see that there's this missed opportunity where they feel like it, you know, and I've used this analogy before, and a couple of you have actually said it, which is kind of cool. It's like, hey, somebody listened to me.
That's a first,
right? The rear view mirror is a lot smaller than the front view, but when you let the rear view mirror be the bigger view, you start to stare at it more and more. And as you get older, with a false assumption that you're going to just live until you're 100, because not everybody makes it. There are people who have been taken out of this world way sooner, unfortunately. I mean, the goal is to live as long as possible, but there are people that have died a lot younger. And when I see the look on people's eyes when they look past their life and they kind of review it in their head, and they know that there was a vision that God gave them for something that He wanted them to do and they never did it, it's sad. And I look at that in retrospect sometimes and just think to myself, like, I'm getting older, and some people go, oh, you're just getting started, Steve. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe, but that depends on where the cap is. I could be at the tail end of my life. I could just be getting started. I don't know. Right? But when God gives you a vision and says, I want you to do this, or He puts a burden on your heart and says, I want you to do this, there's different reactions with that. Sometimes we look at it and we go, yeah. And then other times we're like, oh no. In 2004, when I truly became, I believe, born again, I'm walking on this football field and I'm saying, Lord, I don't belong where I am anymore. There's got to be something more to this, you know? And I remember Him showing me that I was supposed to go back to Millville. And I'm like, why do I want to do that? I live in a nice place in Mantua. Yes, it's not Mantua, it's Mantua. And, you know, it was a nice farm area, close to all kinds of stuff, well-developed, lower unemployment, near Woodbury and all kinds of nice places. We had a townhouse together. You know, my wife and I, it was great. You know, it was really awesome. And you want me to go back to Millville? Why? Because to this day, if you go up there and you go to their park, you don't see needles. You don't see drug paraphernalia. Doesn't mean you don't do it. But it's a lot different than going to a park down here. I don't have people saying to me, gunshots or fireworks? Didn't even know that existed until I came back down here. Now, this isn't to trash Millville, because Millville growing up was a great place. And I still believe it is. But it needs a lot of work. And it needs a vision, and it needs miracles. And it will have it when God says it's time. And this is what I want to springboard into. When I knew that I was called to come back here and be a pastor of a church and start a church here, the first thing was I ran from it. The first thing was I said, oh, no, you know, I ain't going back there. I'm not doing this. That ain't happening. And then, once I lost the fight with God, now you're shocked, and I said, yeah, I'm going back. I'm Superman. I got this. I'm going to save Millville. Boy, oh boy, I had no idea what that journey would entail 13 years later. And by the way, and you're going to hear me say it several times, Joseph's journey, from the time he saw the vision in his dream to the time it actually came to fruition, was 13 years. I personally believe, and call it selfish, that this sermon series is for me. Because this is the year it breaks out. That's just in my spirit. I could be wrong. It could be wishful thinking. I just believe it. Because he's not only putting it for me, he's putting it for all of you, because many of you have had dreams that right now you're looking at and he's going, that is the furthest thing from my mind. I always wanted to record music, but I never did. I always wanted to play drums, but well, maybe I'll do that one day. I always wanted to own a house. Well, I'm barely surviving right now. That'll just have to wait. I'm supposed to write a book. Well, everything keeps coming in my way and work and everything else, and I'll just do it whenever. I've always wanted to paint. I've always wanted to learn how to paint. And God's put this thing on my heart. I'm supposed to paint, and He's given me visions. But I got a family and everything, and COVID and all that, and I just don't have time. See, that's little stuff, believe it or not. But the bigger stuff is, what if He said to each and every one of you, I want you to run a business. I want you to start a nonprofit. I want you to start a restaurant. And yes, I'm looking right at you, Bunny. I want you to start a rehab. I want you to start some sort of organization that I want you to do. And you're like, you're out of your mind, Lord. Which we all know the answer to that ain't right? And so maybe to our online audience, you're feeling me right now. All you see is in front of you is this, the hand. All you see right now is survival. It's all you can see because you're like, Pastor, I know years ago God spoke to me about this, but I just put that on the shelf. There are two things I want to say, and we're going to move through the slides, is this. Number one, I believe now is the time where He's going to tell you to dust that off the shelf. Number two, if you don't, you're going to have to answer for it. This isn't about what makes you feel good. Contrary to what some circles say. God put a vision, He puts your passion in your heart and all that. Well, that's fine, but what if He does it, but you're not exactly enthusiastic about it? What if you look around? I can tell you right now, when I leave Millville and go into another area that's more fluent, I can tell the spiritual temperature has changed. I can tell the difference in people, saved and unsaved. There's a different sensing. We visited friends a few weeks ago in our old town. And I can tell you, the atmosphere in their house was different than down here. I could see it. There wasn't this poverty mentality thing going on. There wasn't this, doom and gloom. There wasn't all this. It was different. I can't put my finger on it, but it was different. But when all you know is when you drive down 49 and you see Zombieland and you see people spaced out on drugs and see all kinds of nonsense going on, you sit there and think to yourself, like, am I in the Twilight Zone? And why do you want me back here, Lord? Now, I'm speaking, I guess, for me today. You just happen to tune in. But I'm saying this to everyone else. When we go through this, I want you to be encouraged to know that if God has put a vision on your heart and says, I want you to carry this out, you have a responsibility to do it whether you like it or not. It's not about if it feels good. If it feels good, do it. No. It's, yes, sir. And believe me, I've been getting convicted lately about even my own thinking and things about doing God's will because I like my will. Now, I know I'm the only one here that goes through that, so just bear with me a second, okay? But the bottom line is, He's really been dealing with me the last couple of days about this. Like, you think this is my will, but I want you to do this. And if I want you to wait a little longer, you're going to wait. And then I act like a child, and I go in timeout, and I start crying and kicking the wall and everything else. And then He sends Pastor Tom in my life and says, don't put a timeline on God, And I see his face again. I'm like, ooh, It's like every Thursday night. But anyway, but the bottom line is, guys, this is encouraging because you may be going through something, or maybe you haven't even started this journey yet. And this journey doesn't have to be a 13-year journey. But the example is amazing because we're going to go through it and we're going to see.